let's just jump into it. Do we have anybody new joining us this morning? I don't believe so.
Billy. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hi,
I'm Joyce Whitby. I
hi,
couldn't
Joyce.
I
And
couldn't
so,
unmute
so,
that.
so Joyce, you want to tell people who you are, please?
Sure. I'm Joyce Whitby. I work with a company called Digital Responsibility, and um, we have digital citizenship training for teachers and students. We're involved in a statewide digital equity training for teachers and librarians in New Mexico, and we are based in Utah. So we're all neighbors.
Cool.
Thanks for having me. I'm just here to learn.
Okay. Anybody else who's new today?
And hi, Steve. I'm Carrie with the founder of Digital Responsibility here with Joyce. So I talked to you on the phone earlier, and
Yes,
nice
you
to
did.
meet some neighbors here in Arizona. We were working in Utah and New Mexico, and I've worked with your state library in Arizona a bit in the past before too. So nice to be here. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Glad you could join us today. Okay. Anybody else new that I've missed? All righty. So moving on quickly. Just a reminder, if you haven't signed up on our list, that please take the time to fill out the Google form and so that we have your contact information. I really appreciate it. So the agenda today, we have a number of announcements, but a lot of the meeting today is going to be devoted, as you all know, the deadline is rapidly approaching for the digital equity competitive grant. And so we want to give you kind of a quickie overview of what that process is, and then I just want to open it up to any of you who are applying or plan on applying, who might be looking for partnerships, relationships. We'll have the opportunity to share that today. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin Lorando's ACA Digital Equity Program Manager. So see that, Erin, I introduced you already.
Thank you. I am here. I do apologize to everybody. I am switching devices as we speak. I was taking my kiddo to school. So thank you for the grace. And I'll
Yeah, it's
share
school
some
time
links.
again, huh?
I know. Well, she's been back for, oh gosh, a week and a half now. She started last week Monday. So um, but but anyway, I will drop some links when I'm actually on my computer, but I appreciate the opportunity to give a brief update. Not a lot of things right now. I think this group probably already knows that the BEAD Volume 2 was approved last week. And so that starts the year-long shot clock to get the BEAD funding out the door. Um, and so more information will be shared about that shortly. The timelines for the applications and the project areas and the maps and everything that you're waiting very patiently for us to put out are getting finalized as we speak and will be shared very shortly. And then as far as digital equity specifically is concerned, as Steve mentioned, the competitive grant that entities who are eligible would apply directly to NTIA to receive funding for digital equity work is open. The application window closes on the 23rd of September, so it is a short time frame. The Arizona Commerce Authority directly is not eligible to apply. However, we have put together a resource where folks can connect on similar projects that they might be considering to kind of see what other folks are thinking about and also see where we can partner up and share the load a little bit. And so I'll share a link to that shortly. And then also we have a lot of engagements planned. We were actually just in Payson yesterday. And next week we are headed to Yavapai County. And I'll drop links to share where you can find that information shortly. We are also planning the in-person forums that were delayed due to the fact that BEAD Volume 2 hadn't been approved yet. And so information will be added to our engagement site on our website as soon as those details are finalized as well. I think that's all my updates, unless there are questions.
Any
Oh, I
questions
see
for
the
Aaron?
question. Hold on. Marilyn, I see your question about the capacity grant. Yes. So if you're not receiving emails from our office, please let me know. I would be happy to add you to the distribution lists that we maintain as well. Her question was about capacity subgrants. So that is the funding that my office is securing right now. The just over $16 million that we've been allocated in this first round to implement the digital equity plan. And part of that will include subgrants. Once our capacity grant application gets approved, we'll be able to share those timelines. But if you're not receiving information from our office, either for BEAD or for digital equity, and you would like to, please feel free to either just, you can directly message me your email if it's easier. Otherwise, I will drop a link where you can fill out a short form to be added to our list as well. Thank you for that question, Marilyn. I apologize for not mentioning it.
So Aaron, do you have the process outlined yet for the subgrantee process?
Yes, but unfortunately, we can't share too much more of it because of the fact that it hasn't been approved yet. So
Okay.
yeah, it's like we always have to, wait for the step before us to get completed before we can move on. So I appreciate everyone's patience with that. We've definitely been working on it and thinking about it, but until it gets its gold star from NTIA, it can change and all of that. We're still anticipating the fall, for the subgrants for both. The timeline for BEAD, I think, is a whole lot closer to being finalized and released just because it now has its approval. And so you'll hear about that probably first.
Okay, thank you. Any other
Of course.
questions for Aaron? Okay, moving on. Well, we have a kind of a bit, well, let me just remind you that most of what, when we report about events and meetings and stuff like that, in this meeting, that I do usually after the meeting include that information with links and contacts in the newsletter that I do following the meeting. So I just want to remind you about that. And then also, if information is posted in the chat, that I also send out the chat so that you have all that information readily available. And the last thing related to that is, which I always remind people, is that you can download the chat after the meeting. And I do send out the chat information, but you can download the chat if you pull up the chat app at the top, there's three ellipses, three dots. And if you click on that, you can download the chat to your to your computer. Makes it a lot easier than trying to capture what everybody's talking about and adding to the chat. So I just wanted to mention that to you. Okay, moving on. Well, we have I guess maybe it's a sad announcement, but many of you may already know that I want to say a big old thank you to Mylan Eaton, who is leaving the Department of Education. I believe actually may have been his last day yesterday, after 10 years of amazing, outstanding service as the ADE E-rate manager. He was responsible for millions and millions of dollars for education, schools, students, and so forth. And so, Mylan, I believe you're on the line. Anything you want to add, say, whatever?
Sure. You know me, I love to talk, Steve. I've been there almost 10 years, which is the longest I've ever been anywhere. I mean, I've been in marriages that didn't last that long. So it's been great. I love Arizona. I love all the people. It's just been a labor of love, and I've loved every minute of it. The E-rate piece, building up the broadband program, building the final mile program, managing all those programs. And, we did $140 million worth of broadband projects in the state, building broadband to rural schools, $3 million in, final mile projects. We consistently do about $70 million worth of E-rate for our schools and libraries to subsidize their internet and internal connections. And so far this year, we have $40 million of E-rate funding that's already been approved, which is outstanding considering this is the middle of August. And the funding year just opened up in July. So We're doing great. E-rate's doing great. It's healthy in the state. Let's just hope it stays that way. I'm going into something I've thought about doing for years, and it's just time to go ahead and do it. I'm going to have my own E-rate consulting company, E-rate Professionals, and I sent out the announcement yesterday, and I have been booked solid all day today and all day Friday and all day Monday with people saying, yes, we want to hire you. So I should have waited until next week so I could actually take off a little bit and rest. But, you know, rest is for the wicked, I guess, or wickeder. But, and it's all people that I've worked with for years anyway. So it's great. I love everybody that I work with, and I love all the people in Arizona. And ADE has been great to work with. And there's a couple of states that are looking for state E-rate coordinators that they hire E-rate consultants that do exactly what I've been doing for Arizona, and they hire them to take care of their state. So I'll actually propose my services to one or two of those states, as well as taking care of the individual schools. So it's going to work out great. And, you know, you never know, maybe I'll end up being the E-rate coordinator for Arizona as a consultant. So we'll see what happens. But all of you guys are great. I put my contact info in the chat. All of you are free and welcome to reach out anytime you like.
Well, again, Mylan, thank you so much for all your work and your friendship and partnership. We've been longtime friends, and really appreciate it. Hope you're going to continue to attend our meetings when you're available.
I will, Steve, and I appreciate you always inviting me and calling me and reminding me sometimes that, hey, it's been a while since you've been there. You need to show up. So I always appreciate that, and your friendship over the last, 25 years or so. But it's been a pleasure, and I plan on being around. I'm not going anywhere.
Are we that old, Mylan?
You may be, but not me.
Okay, well, thank you, Mylan. And again, we look forward to your continued engagement with us. And I'm sure lots of you have things to say, but Mala, you've been
Yes,
probably most engaged.
I really want to add my personal thank you to Mylan. He's been a great partner in crime, and a wonderful leader in the E-rate broadband world, not only for Arizona, but throughout the US. And I want to just add my personal thank you to Steve's. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you did. And I am sure you're going to have a very successful time. There is no rest. Don't even dream of resting if you're going to be an E-rate consultant. Thank you, Mylan.
Okay, so moving on, I don't believe she's here yet. Beth Neely, are you online yet? I don't believe so. So Beth Neely is, I believe she is the CIO, is that correct, Mylan, at the Department of Education?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
And for now,
So,
Beth's going to be responding to any emails that come to me or come to erate@azed.gov or to my old email address. So Beth is going to be filling that role until they find a replacement for me.
so she was going to be here today to kind of give us an update on what the plans are. So moving on, are there any other quick announcements? Elena, I see Brianna's not going to be here this morning. Anything about you that we need to know about?
Actually, no federal update today because they're on recess. So it's been quiet.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. No news is good news. We think.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on and get into our agenda for today. And the focus of this, and this is going to be an experiment, so I'm not sure how this is going to go. I want to keep this fairly informal, but as you know, the competitive grant is due, and I'm going to let Nicole talk about that in a minute, but I believe the September 23rd is the deadline for applying for the competitive grant. And so we have some people who are planning, who have some plans to apply for that grant, some who are thinking about it, some who are thinking about partners. And so today's going to be just sharing. Anybody who's applying or thinking about applying or looking for partners, we would like to give you the opportunity to share that today. So, but first, before we do that, I have talked with Nicole, who you all know, who's the federal program officer for NTIA here in Arizona, and she's going to give us just a quickie update on the competitive grant. In particular, I got to tell you, and I'll share later that there are a number of things. There's a number of webinars and presentations that are happening about the process for applying for that competitive grant. And I will tell you, I sat on a webinar yesterday, and it's a very complex process. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole to kind of give us a quickie overview. So Nicole, you're on.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm a little under the weather, so sorry for not being on camera today. But Steve asked to talk a little bit about the competitive grant program and specifically about what partnerships can look like. And Steve, I'm glad you were able to catch some of the webinars. There's a few that are coming up, a few that have already come up, and all of those resources are on the Broadband USA website. So those are good first places to check out. Because this is a program where applicants apply directly to the federal government. It's true, Steve, that it's a little complex to apply, but there's a lot of resources and a lot of support along the way, as well as some fantastic colleagues to get into this with. September 23rd at midnight or 11:59 p.m. East Coast time is the deadline. And the first thing that is critical if you're considering applying is that you must have an active sam.gov address and a UEI number in order to apply. You're not going to be able to do it on September 23rd and get your application in if you don't have that set up, because it can take a couple of weeks, even months. So that needs to be started as soon as possible. You also must register for the NTIA grant application portal. We call it the NGP grants portal, but you also need to have that in place before you're able to apply. And then you have to determine who is going to be the individuals with the access level to actually complete that application. So making sure that your team is in place and you're ready to submit as early as possible is really going to be key. But of course, I know the conversation is going to lean towards Corey. The deadline is September 23rd. September 23rd, which is a Monday. So you'll have the whole weekend to cram. Hopefully not. So partnerships can certainly help expand your project's reach, especially because the same covered populations that we've talked about throughout the Digital Equity Planning Grant and the Capacity Grant, these are the same covered populations that are the intended beneficiaries of the competitive grant. This was all outlined in the bipartisan infrastructure law. So partnerships then can really help you leverage a lot of that expertise. And you can also benefit from your colleagues in developing really strong proposals. The competitive grant programs, those projects awards are anticipated to be between $5 million to $10 million in awards per awardee, but you're able to propose projects that fall below that number or potentially over that number if there is a strong justification. But that is the expected range of each of these awards to get out for all of the potential awardees nationwide. So who's actually eligible to be the entity hitting submit in the grants portal? That is a political subdivision, a state agency, or an instrumentality of the state. That is a Indian tribe, Alaska Native entity, or Hawaiian organization. So you might remember that there's a set aside in the digital equity capacity grant just for Native entities. Native entities are able to apply in this competitive grant pot. And there's also a set aside for other projects. And so that might make a little more sense for entities that want to participate in a partnership as well as to apply for their own project funding. Also eligible is foundations, corporations, institutions, or associations that are nonprofit, community anchor institutions, local education agencies. So these are things like your school districts at that school district level, and entities that carry out workforce development programs, and any partnership amongst any of those. Let's see. So there must be one authorized representation of that partnership that is going to be the applicant if you're thinking about a coordinated effort. As part of that application, if you go that route, you do have to submit a binding letter of commitment from each of the members of your partnership that acknowledges, X organization is the authority to file this application on our behalf. And it should also recognize the scope of the work and the type of, partnership and activities that each partner is going to serve. If it is a Native entity as part of a competitive grant cohort, they do need to have a letter of tribal consent or a tribal government resolution that gives the formal authorization of that authorized representative to apply on behalf of the tribal entity. And same if the Native entity is applying directly at the same time. I will mention that there is also a 10% match that's required for the competitive grant. Applicants that are able to propose more than that will be given additional consideration. And this is pretty flexible because the matching funds can be cash or they can be in kind, as long as they're consistent with the Code of Federal Regulations. So there's a lot of ways to be able to meet that match requirement. I'm going to stop there because we're really just talking about potential models for partnerships. But if there's any questions, I can try to address those here.
Any questions for Nicole?
Yeah, I have one. Nicole, in addition to sam.gov, you mentioned one other registration that you have to do. Were you talking about the portal, or is there one other registration?
That's the portal.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Nicole? So just moving on quickly, Erin, you want to just remind, you still there, Erin? You want to remind people about, this is related to the digital equity, to the competitive grant, that you have a form that people can fill out if they're interested in sharing what they're planning to do and looking for partners.
Yeah, I actually dropped it. It was a little bit of a late ad. I apologize, but I did put all of the links that I mentioned when I was on the phone in the chat. And one of those was just a little spreadsheet that we put together to help folks who are considering applying for the competitive grant to find each other. If there's a similar project that someone is working on, we're just trying to help. We're not officially part of this process. There's no requirement to do this, anything like that. We just figured there'd be an opportunity there for folks to find each other if they haven't yet. And so I did drop that link. Please let me know if there's any issues there. It should be, completely accessible, open to anyone. But sometimes, permissions are weird. So there's that. And I'm going to reserve comments about any capacity subgrant because I think that there is sometimes confusion, when we talk about both in the same space. So if you want to talk about capacity subgrants again, we can put some space between that and the competitive grants.
Okay. And so while you're up, Aaron, you want to also just talk about on August 20th, the webinar, Managing a Federal Grant, with the Local First is going to be presenting?
Yes, so this is our next regularly scheduled digital equity webinar that we host monthly, except for when there's absolutely nothing that we can share. And so we have invited our friends at Local First to come to this next webinar. They're going to be talking about more related to the capacity grant and being a potential sub-grantee within the state. So this will not be in relation to the competitive grant. This would be in relation to the capacity sub-grants that we anticipate in the fall.
Okay. Any questions about that? By the way, Local First, they do an awesome job. And so really encourage you all to think about attending. And then August 13, 27, September 12th, that NDIA has a digital equity competitive grant working group, and you can participate in those meetings. They do also record them, and I will be sharing when those recordings are available. And then
Steve, quick question
yeah,
for
sure,
Aaron.
Rika.
On the Local First, is that one going to be recorded? Because I won't be in town.
We do record all of our webinars, and then they
Okay.
get added to there's like a content library underneath where the webinars are listed on the website. So yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit of time for that to get posted. But again, since this is in relation to the potential sub-grant program, we're not up against that September deadline for it. So hopefully it's still useful for you, but it might take a little bit for it to get added.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
And then also, Aaron, you have on the 17th digital equity webinar.
Yep, that'll just be the next regularly scheduled digital equity webinar. We do a monthly, so every third Tuesday.
Okay, and then we mentioned earlier that NTIA has a digital equity competitive grant program webinar series. You've already missed a couple of those, but they are recorded, and I will share the links. But I really encourage you to, of course, a lot of this is the competitive grant is going to be almost kind of late here, but anyway, I encourage you to attend those. It was very informative when I attended the meeting, I think it was yesterday, about the whole process of applying. So I encourage you to think about that. Okay.
And the recordings are always posted as well.
Yep.
The recordings and slides, if you miss it.
Thank you, Nicole. So a couple of other just quickie announcements. The broadband office, are you guys still looking for a compliance manager? Aaron, do you know?
That open position, it has not been filled yet. So if you know anyone who would like to apply, I have to find the link again, but I can definitely do that.
Thank you. And I do include that in my newsletter also. And then I don't know, Anthony, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Steve.
Oh, so Anthony, is that are you still looking for a state library technologist specialist?
Yeah, we are. So we're looking for a library technology specialist that will work on the library development team. And they would essentially be helping to coordinate connectors on our digital inclusion initiative, and then also working on emerging technologies in Arizona libraries. I can drop a link to that posting in the chat here.
Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
And again, I've also included that in my newsletter. So with that, Mala, anything big happening so that we can move on to our discussion today? Anything
No.
big happening at the federal level?
Not really, Steve. Yes, we can move on.
Okay, so let's move on to our discussion today. And actually, I'm going to do a couple of quick announcements because we may run out of time. So two big events that are going to be happening here in Arizona on September 23rd. Is it September? Is that right? September 23rd through the 25th, the National Tribal Telecom Association Tribal Broadband Summit will be at Wild Horse Pass. And that's a huge, huge, huge event. And it's great that they do it, I think, every year here in Arizona. And then in May 20 through 22, 2025, NDIA. Actually, Elena, you want to just tell people about that real quick?
Sure. So NDIA's annual Net Inclusion Conference is going to be held this year in Arizona, the Gila River Indian Community at Wild Horse Pass at the Sheridan. They're expecting about 1,800 people. So that's great. I, along with probably some other folks on this call, are on the local planning committee for that. So we've only had 1 or 2 meetings so far, so we're just kind of getting going. But it's a great event, and early bird registration is open now, so I can drop that link in the chat. But it will be a really great event and a great way to represent Arizona and to show, all the good stuff that we're doing here. So I will put that registration link in the chat. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, and again, that information is also in my newsletter. And if you have any thoughts about that conference, what you'd like to see, you can contact Elena. You can contact me. I don't know, Erin, are you in that planning meeting?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, of course. And Erin, and there's probably several other people on this call who are on the planning meeting. I believe there's a meeting tomorrow morning, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to stop sharing now. And so here's the deal. As I said in my email, that this is going to be a very informal kind of a discussion here. So what I'm looking for is anybody who's thinking about, looking at 2 things. One is that if you're thinking about applying for a grant or already that's in process and you want to share that, that would be great. If you're looking for partners, that would be great. And then I know we have a couple of consulting organizations and so forth who, while they may not be applying for a grant, but may be a resource. So if you have a resource that you can bring to the table, we would like to hear that also. So with that, I'm just going to open it up. If you have anything you want to share, please raise your hand. Anybody? I know you're there. So Lucy, I know you do, right?
I'm looking for the hand. I'm like,
okay,
where is
well,
the
go
hand
ahead.
My name's Lucy Howell. We are not looking to be a lead on this. We are looking for partners who are actively training community health workers or who are actively training digital health navigators, because we can be a nice, platform or resource to help accelerate some of that training. So I've met with many of you, but I'm just putting that out there, like a Chicanos por la Casa. If you guys are looking for, a way to stabilize that, so I've met with many of you, but that's kind of what I'm looking for, is anybody that's actually has people, nonprofits that are reaching out, boots on ground, that would like some healthy digital navigation tools. I also am proposing that we, put together a collaborative community, print mechanism at least once a year out. So those partners that we're working with could be featured in something like that. So that's me.
Okay, thanks, Lucy. So who else? I know we've got people. Mala, are you guys planning to apply for a competitive grant?
I think, yeah, I think we are, and I don't have much more details because we just had 1 meeting so far, and we're trying to shape what we would like to do. It's mainly going to be in the area of digital navigators, maybe in person, maybe online, but we're not quite quite there yet. Not ready at this point to share, but yes, we are thinking of applying.
Okay, thank you, Mala. Corey?
Hey, yeah, we don't have any plans to apply for
Yeah.
funds at this time at the national level, but I've been talking with several people who are talking about applying for an Arizona subgrant, and their projects are like $5 million. So if some of those folks are here and thinking about applying for the subgrant, I'd encourage you to apply for the federal grant, because that's going to be like a third of Arizona's funding for one of those programs, when the federal grant is looking for those specific dollar range of projects.
I'm getting them. Just give me a minute.
Okay. Now, the other thing I did want to mention is about Mala's what Mala was saying is, I don't know what the amount would be for what the state library was thinking about with digital navigators, but that might be a good option to go down this route as well, because it may fit within that price range.
Right, and we are looking for a large grant, Corey. It's going to be statewide, and you know that it is spread over 4 years, right? So, yes, what we are trying to apply for, or what we're trying to shape right now, is going to be spread over 4 years, and it is for digital navigators, not just for, health navigators, but could be all areas, workforce development, and many others, in person as well as online.
Yeah, that's great. And if you need any assistance with that, I can help on the library and workforce development front. So
We are counting on you to do that.
Okay, Carrie, you had some things you wanted to share, please?
All right. So I just want to let the group know that right after this meeting, New Mexico's Broadband Digital Equity Task Force is meeting. A lot of partners are meeting to discuss this issue. And I know that there's some interest in some cross-state organizations. We're from Utah. We work in the state of New Mexico, and we're looking for like a kind of a four corners broader state coalition around educational services, particularly parent education, particularly as a lot of those families have become connected in the last few years and working to expand those digital literacy and digital citizenship skills. So I've talked to a few of you, but please reach out. I put my info on the spreadsheet, but we were looking for something broader. Be great to have a few states work together on this.
Okay, and make sure you get your contact information in the chat, and of course I'll send it out also. Tabitha, and so Tabitha, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, I'm Tabitha Peden. I'm a program manager with Rio Salado College. So we are going after the competitive grant with 5 Arizona community colleges we have on board right now with the Department of Corrections. We're looking to bring the broadband into the state prison programs and then higher education access to those population also. So a little bit different population category than a lot of the other programs, but we are going for the incarcerated population.
Okay. Are you still looking for partners or not?
Always looking for partners in the incarcerated program side.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, who else? Anybody else that's thinking about or planning to apply for Elena? Oh, I'm sorry, Elena, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, now my hand worked. Yeah, so I put this in the chat. So our biggest concern, like we really want to work with partners, and we have partners, lots of people who are on the call right now that we work with in the community. Our biggest concern is the ability, particularly for nonprofits, to manage this grant. So, I don't know. I mean, as Nicole explained it, it's really got to be kind of a hub and spoke situation where you've got one main entity or community organization who is the lead, and then the other organizations are kind of the spokes around the wheel. And so I'm just putting it out there because in listening on these calls that NTIA is putting on, it seems so complicated, and there's going to be so much scrutiny around these grants, particularly because some of our political leaders feel like the money is being wasted, and all of that. So there's just some concern on our end of how this could work. So I don't know if anybody else has thought through that or is thinking through that. So I'm
Well,
just
Elena, I got to tell you that I've been thinking about that a lot. And of course, now it's getting pretty late. But particularly, at least in my opinion, that having some of the organizations like, uh, excuse me, community colleges and larger entities who have a lot of experience in writing and managing federal grants, because the application is only the first part of the process, and then you have to manage those grants, and you got all the reporting requirements and all of that sort of stuff. And so while it's getting kind of late now, but I'm a big believer that we should have really been and should be on into the future be talking about that relationship between those organizations and the smaller organizations who are doing great work but may not have the capacity to do those grants.
Well, and particularly because this isn't the only grant that there's going to be. I mean,
Yeah.
we've all heard that there's going to be, 2 or 3 tranches of money coming down the pike, not as much as this first one. But I just really feel like there's this whole complicated issue that's going to take place after you apply for the grant. And if that infrastructure, I guess you could say, isn't set in stone, and I just worry about that for folks that, like you said, that aren't larger organizations that have grant writers, that have people to manage the grants, that do all of that. So particularly, like the nonprofits, I feel like have to be the spokes. Like there's, it would be really difficult unless you're United Way or one of the really big nonprofits in Arizona to do this.
Well, and I'm concerned about that also, and how it relates to what happens afterwards. After this money's gone, then what? And some of the larger entities have a greater capacity to be looking at those kinds of things than the smaller organizations. Again, it's not because those small organizations aren't doing great work, but the capabilities to apply and manage those grants can be very daunting. So anyway, anybody else want to share anything?
I like the idea of you asking all of us, to come together to do this, and maybe ACA's idea of having us all put it in one place, because, as we crystallize, each of us crystallize what we want to do, it might coalesce into one grant or two. And I am afraid that if all of us are applying for little bits and pieces, none of us is going to get it, because being a competitive grant, also the fact that we may have just one grant that they may give per state, it better be a really good one, and it better have all the I's dotted and T's crossed before we submit it. And we have a very short runway to do it. So I really appreciate, Steve, you're bringing this together and bringing this to the meeting. But I think we need to sooner rather than later, have something that we can put down on paper for people to see, so that we can join hands.
Well, it's almost getting too late now for the competitive grant, with only
Right.
a week or two for application. And if folks aren't already well down that path, it's almost too late for them
Right.
to apply.
Wait, Steve, you said a week or two? The grants aren't due until September 23rd.
September
Oh,
23rd.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're correct. I can't keep track of dates. Yes, you're correct. Thank you.
Elena, he gave us a heart attack, didn't he?
I know.
Thank you for that, Elena. Yeah, so that does give us a little breathing room. But yes, it's definitely, but even then, that's still not a lot of time. If you're going to do a partner grant and everybody has to get signed up and get all the partner agreements and everything done, that's not a huge amount of time. So if you're thinking about that, you got to get cranking. Okay, who else? Anybody else
If
that's wanting to?
Michelle wanted to say something,
Yeah,
but
go
like
ahead, Michelle.
she couldn't find the hand raise.
Yeah, it's like, it's not just me. There is no hand raise. I can't find it
Thank you.
anywhere.
That's
I
what I
don't know
was
what the
saying.
deal is.
Huh.
So, Michelle Simon, Director, Pima County's Office of Digital Inclusion. We are looking at applying for Southern Arizona Regional Telehealth Access program, which would include telehealth access points, as well as digital health navigators. Now, we called it Southern Arizona because honestly, I felt like and that's inclusive of Pima County, Santa Cruz County, and Cochise counties. We may include Graham and Greenlee counties because of the partnership with United Way. But I'm looking at it from that perspective because honestly, it seemed like a really super short time frame to throw together something that would be statewide or multi-state wide to get people together to really flesh out a comprehensive application in that way. But if anybody in the state is interested in telehealth access points or digital health navigators, please contact me. We are at this point have at the table United Way, U of A's telemedicine program, all of the health departments from each of those counties, as well as a variety of community organizations and healthcare providers as well. And every meeting, somebody else new shows up. So just throwing that out there.
Okay. Anybody else? Kelly, you're awfully quiet. Is ASU going to apply? Well, I'm sure somewhere in ASU.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone. Kelly Mukherjee from ASU's Enterprise Technology. I did put in the chat, we do not plan on being a lead. I'm actually not aware of anyone at ASU being the lead, but ASU is happy to partner with anyone wanting our help. We offer so much, so I mean, I can't list it all, but happy to have conversations with anyone. For example, we do broadband mapping, we do storytelling, grant management. We also have As One as a web platform. So we invite anyone who's not aware of As One to let me know. We're happy to, add you on and your resources, help amplify the wonderful work that you're all doing. So please feel free to reach out. My contact is in the chat.
Okay, thank you. And David.
Thank you. I found where to raise my hand. So I just had a bit of a dumb question. What is this grant for? Is it just for digital equity, as in training people to navigate the digital world? Can this be for providing access? Does anyone know? I've been looking through the site and, it just has all the buzzwords, but nothing really clear.
David, just to start the conversation, I'm dropping the link to, I'm sure this is where you were looking, but this is where all of the information is through the grants portal, and you can get to see the NOFO, the program description, eligibility, all that kind of stuff in there, which might be a good spot to start if you haven't taken a look there. The easy answer is, digital equity is, after we have access, it's all of the resources and digital literacy upskilling and device access and affordability concerns, et cetera, that one needs to fully participate once they have that access that BEAD is going to be providing. So it's sort of, if you think back to the digital equity plan, those different categories of information and pieces that were in there, it's that stuff as well.
Okay. Does anyone have an idea or an example of what kind of projects people are putting forth for this?
So you think it's the phone showing in the office? Or?
Well,
I can speak to that just a little bit, only because in the little coordination spreadsheet that we put out there, some folks are starting to describe some of the projects that they're considering. So I can reshare that just so it doesn't get lost in the chat. But going through it quickly, people are talking about expanding digital navigator and health navigator services, curriculum training, workforce development, computer classes, AI education, lots on digital navigation, workforce development, etc. Basically, any project or program that could facilitate, that integration and use of broadband into a person's life.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Oh, David, remind me, you're in Mesa?
Yeah, I'm a project manager at City of Mesa, so I'm building the networks, not really training anybody. I just give it to you. You got to figure it out.
Okay. So Elena, I don't know, maybe you want to connect with David, see if you can help him at all.
And or David, do you connect in with Mesa Unified School District in any way, shape, or form in your current role or not?
We service them, like I work for the IT department. Mainly my projects are over on the public network that we built. So with the free public Wi-Fi, CBRS.
Okay.
Marco, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, definitely. I had a really good experience on Monday. I was up in Yavapai County with Corey and Christy. They could probably speak a little bit more to this, but we had a digital equity workshop, and just really got the juices flowing. Some ideas were shared.
Excuse me, Marco, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Oh yeah, I'm Marco Rivas. I'm the government account executive with T-Mobile here in the state of Arizona.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, no worries, no worries. I think I'm going to put Corey or Christy on the spot. They had a workshop for digital equity on Monday. Really awesome experience. They got the juices flowing. Some good ideas came out of it, and there's a second one coming up. But that might be something worth to mimic.
So Corey, you want to jump in? Are you there? Okay.
This is Christy. Maybe I could take this a little bit. So we're just starting our process out of creating our digital equity plan in Yavapai County. On September 16th at 10 o'clock, we will be having another workshop for anybody who's interested in working in Yavapai County in this area.
Christy, you're a librarian, am I correct?
Yeah, I'm the public services librarian for the library district.
Okay. So I guess another question is, so I know Strider, we had a great discussion with you guys recently about some of the work you're doing. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or plans about partnering with anybody or applying for any of that funding. But I want to also add, I know there's a couple of folks on here who are consulting in consulting organizations. And if you have any capability of helping some folks to get their grants written, please speak up.
I would, Steve, I'll echo what Marco said. Strider Dennison, WeCom Fiber, Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing. I got a chance to meet Marco at the event and collaborate with a number of other individuals. I'll say that Christy and Corey put on a phenomenal event, and I think it was a great workshop in the sense that, as Marco said, got everybody's juices flowing, but it was really around what are the areas of opportunity and what are some of the potential pitfalls. And I think that, these are things that we should continue to collaborate on around, most importantly, around consistency. The thing that I kind of resonated with me in this process is there's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of perspective. I don't think any of it is wrong or misguided, but I definitely think that we as an organization, kind of as entities within ourselves, should kind of align around consistency with some of this messaging, because we're going to be talking to individuals and other stakeholders that are going to be very vulnerable to our messaging and are going to be very receptive to this messaging, but we want to be careful to not have mismessaging or conflicting messages when it comes to digital navigation and digital equity. So I would encourage organizations to kind of think on maybe quasi-standardizing, right? We want to be able to have our own influence and perspective on it, but there are, I think, core fundamentals that we should all kind of collaborate and agree on, in the sense that when we go to message to our un and underserved communities, that the message is consistent and that they can receive it in a way that it seems to be reinforcing from different entities. So that would be my only suggestion or observation out of that. And yes, we are looking to partner. In fact, I have my to-do list from last week's meeting. I'll be sending some emails out today. I finally came up for a breath of air. So you'll be, for those of you that sent me a private message last week or what have you, I'll be sending out some emails to you guys later on today. So thank you, Steve.
Sure. Okay. Anybody have anything else that they want to share, or what they're thinking, or what their thought, what we need to be thinking about?
I'll just quickly add, I know I've been on the call for a couple months here, and for those who I haven't met yet, my name's Eileen. I work for a nonprofit called Human IT. So we provide digital equity services across the state of Arizona. And yeah, we're also in a position where not looking to lead an application, but here to support with any programs we have, whether that be digital navigation or devices. And I've talked to a couple people like Alana and others about what that all could look like. So all to say, we're just here, as a support for people who might need those types of programs. We have a lot of experience, and I left my contact info in that Excel doc too. So if it makes sense, please don't be shy to reach out.
And Eileen, if I remember correctly, I always tell people I have a good memory, just a little short, but but if I remember correctly, you guys are a fairly large national organization.
That's right. Yeah, we also work in other states surrounding. So I heard a couple folks on the call mention that too, like a regional play, which hopefully it's exciting to see this much enthusiasm for like, how can we just get more resources within Arizona itself?
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else have anything else? We can certainly end it early today if there's no more, any other announcements that people want to make.
Steve, do you want to mention the delay of the August 29th?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes. So as you probably know, that we're planning to do a forum on public networks on August the 29th. But there's a conflict with the League of Cities and Towns, and several of our people who were going to be on the panel are going to be attending that event. So so we're going to postpone, and I'm going to have to contact everybody and find another date to do that. So anyway, anything else? Any other announcements? Going once? Going twice? Well, again, I encourage you, if you're still thinking about applying for the competitive grant, that there's a number of webinars, a number of resources, and you should really go check those out and attend those events, because it's very informative. While they're not interactive like our meetings are, but they do allow you to ask questions, and they try to respond to questions as they can. And again, they record those meetings and are available also. So with that, I believe we are done.